personality, Dr. M. Srinivas, Professor, University College of Law, Kakatiya University, Telangana. It's a heartwarming moment to meet Sir again, as myself and Dr. Meera have completed a short-term program on disaster management in Hyderabad University with him. His sincerity, punctuality, and hard working attract everyone, and his simplicity always make him shine. Thank you, sir, for being present with us today. Now let us start the program with the welcome address. For that, I cordially invite Dr. J. Prasanna Kumari, Assistant Professor, Department of Mathematics, for delivering the welcome address. Ma'am, please.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us on the 5th day of short-term program on human rights organized by the IIC and IQAC team of Sri Ayyappa College for Women. Here is a quote on women's rights. Just as women's rights are human rights, women's progress is also human progress. We have to start looking at the world through women's eyes. How are human rights, peace and development defined from the perspective of lives of women? It is also important to look at the world from the perspective of the lives of diverse women, because there is not single woman's view any more than there is a single man's view. First of all, I would like to welcome our principal, Dr. K.V. Jayasree, who is sincere in her efforts to motivate us and teach us to lead. On behalf of our team, I welcome you, Madam.
Thank you, Prasanna.
Now, I would like to welcome our today's chief guest, Dr. M. Srinivas, Professor of Law, Kakatiya University, Warangal, Telangana. Sir has 19 years of teaching experience and completed doctorate in law and policy in disinvestment in India. Sir has served as a principal in University College of Law for 2 years. He has also presented more than 25 papers in various seminars and published more than 15 articles in referred journals. He has also served as a chairperson in Board of Studies in Law till date and acting as a liaison officer RTI Act Cell, Kakatiya University till date. We are very proud of you, sir. On behalf of our college, a very warm welcome you, sir.
Amen.
Next, I like to welcome all the team members of our IIC and IQAC of our college. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you.
Sandhya, Miss mute, unmute your.
Thank you, Prasanna ma'am, for your nice welcome address. Next, going on to the session, I am filled with gratitude to invite Dr. M. Srinivas sir to enlighten us with his speech on human rights of women. Sir, please.
Good evening to one and all.
Good evening, sir.
At the outset, I congratulate Ayyappa College of Women for organizing such a useful program on human rights. And I thank the authorities and as well as the organizers of the program for giving me this opportunity to share a few of my thoughts with this August gathering. I would be failing in my duty if I am not mentioning Dr. Meera Madam, who has remembered me and invited me to give a lecture on the topic of human rights of women. Just now, the Sandhya Madam has said she is my sister. We met in Hyderabad University at Hyderabad, Telangana. We three were colleagues in short-term program, disaster management. So I thank you once again. And to begin with the topic, today's topic is the human rights of the woman. Then the immediate question comes into our mind is, why should we specifically speak about human rights of women? Are women are not human beings? This is the question. Yes, obviously, all international conventions and Indian Constitution says that men, women, even third gender, all are human beings. But why you have to speak about this particular topic? Because of various reasons. Years together, not only in India, throughout the world. Way back from even you go back Rome or UK or recent USA or India. In one way, suppose you take the example of India. The Veda says in one side, Yatra Naryastu Pujyante Tatra Ramante Devata. Where women are praised, there resides the gods and goddesses. And one side, other side says, Natri Swatantra Marivati. So woman is
Input mode.
dependent on various stages. That is why there is a need of speaking about human rights of women. Madam, I would like to share, discuss by presenting a PPT. Please allow me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, sir. It's
Thank you.
okay.
So before going into our topic, I would like to discuss on some basic concepts, because I know most of you are already learned teachers, learned colleagues of me, and few are, I think, students also, young students from various faculties, various subjects. So that is why I would like to give some insights on basic concepts. Generally, we come across two words, that is sex and gender. What is the difference between sex and gender? This is the basic question. When we fill an application form, generally there will be a column that is sex. Male, female, in my generation, where the application form used to have these two columns. Now there is another third column, that is LGBT, for LGBT gender, that is third gender. So then what does it denotes? The sex is simply a biological factor. It is natural. By birth, naturally, a particular person will have some attributes regarding reproductive organs. Reproductive organs. That is nothing to do with social conditions. It is a biological factor, male, female, other thing. Then, if we come to the gender, gender is a different aspect. It is a physical or social condition of being male or female. It may be, generally, the people used to think that when we use the word gender, it always in relation to the woman. No, not like that. It may be for men or it may be for women. That is, some characteristics are attributed to a particular gender by the society. That is the meaning of gender. Suppose in a given society, you think it is a patriarchal society, male-dominating society. Some characteristics, it may be a social, it may be an economic, it may be a cultural, or it may be with respect to controlling the or accessing the a particular opportunities. It is determined by the society that is particularly dominating gender. So generally in a patriarchal society, that is a male-dominated society, the male determines the role of the other gender, obviously woman. You should do this particular thing and you should not do this particular thing. You are not allowed to rule. You are not allowed to drive a vehicle. You are not allowed to laugh at a public place. These are the attributes. These are the conditions mentioned by the other gender. So that is the meaning of the sex is biological factor and natural, and whereas the gender is the socially determined. This we have to keep in our mind. Then going for next aspect, what is gender discrimination? We never use the word sex discrimination. I told you sex is biological, gender is social. That is why we use the word gender discrimination in spite of sex discrimination. Sex discrimination is a male fish or female fish, or a male dog or a female dog, like that. But here In a society with respect to human beings, the gender discrimination means or it determines what is the social role of a particular gender, what is the access to the opportunities, and whether this particular gender is entitlement of a particular resources. These aspects are determined by the other gender. Social role, you take the example of political aspect. Can women participate in politics? Can women rule a particular nation? Can women occupy a particular position of business organization? That is the social role. Access to opportunities. Can women do the employment in aeroplanes, or can they work in army? They are disentitled. Then coming to the aspect of resources, whether men and women are having equal opportunity of sharing the property of their own ancestors, that is mother and father. So till recently women were not having that particular right. Male only should have the right in the ancestral property to some extent. So this is who determined this? One way, all are human beings. All are equal. All are having the human rights. But in other way, we are saying that the women are not entitled to particular property. They are not having a particular opportunity to play a particular social role. This is what you call gender discrimination, which obviously leads a bias in favor of men. So this is what gender discrimination. Then, when there is a gender discrimination, the oppressed class or the suppressed section fights for equality. So that is gender equality. That is called as gender equality. So, okay, in the beginning, there may be suppressed class. They may not open their mouth because of various historical reasons or because of historical conditions. But slowly, when they got educated or because of various movements, they say we are human beings. We want equality based on gender. There should not be any gender discrimination. So here, gender equality means women must exercise full participation in decision-making process. Just I told you, that is a social role. Social role. Whether the women are having full facilitation in making legislation process in either in the parliament or assembly. This is one. Second one is women should get fully shared opportunities equally with men without any discriminations. What jobs or what employment, what occupations, just what profession men are doing, women can also do. So this is what elimination of institutionalized domination and oppression. So we can come across so many instances like family, like religion, like political party. These are all social institutions. Everywhere you go, the domination is institutionalized. Everywhere, women are suppressed. So that is why the women, based on the gender, they are fighting for equality, depending upon the historical saga. Then what is required for women empowerment? To avoid to eliminate gender discrimination and to get gender equality, what is required? The requirement is, or the need is, making women empower, which is called as women empowerment. What is it? It is removing vulnerability of the exploited woman and to prevent violence and injustice. What was the injustice caused earlier, or still what is injustice being done to the woman, that should be removed or that should be prevented. Then only you can achieve what you call women empowerment. Then what to do? Simply by saying or organizing webinars like this, can it is possible to get women empowerment? No. Every nation should have a particular purpose-oriented action. Underline purpose-oriented action. For what? Reinforcing the ability of the disadvantaged women. There must be a legislative goals. There must be an administrative goals. There must be an executive goals. By means of these things, conferring rights on women and conferring duties on men, one nation can achieve this particular woman empowerment. Otherwise, it is not possible. So we will see what does it mean. This purpose-oriented action means what? How it has been evolved. Just we will see. Just I would like to correlate with this particular recent situation. Now our generation is being witnessing this particular pandemic, COVID-19. What it does? It is not a gender neutral. It affected and as well as infected both men and women. It infected health and economy of both men and women. But what has affected women specifically led to exploitation. Many of you know what is the meaning of exploitation. Exploitation means leading to health exploitation, exploitation leading to economic exploitation or sexual exploitation. More than men, women have lost. If you see the data of various organizations, if you see most of the women lost their job. Most of women subjected to domestic violence during this lockdown period. Even our National Commission of Women records also, data also said the same thing. And they lost job or who want to sustain in their job, sexual exploitation. This is what you can say. What is the meaning? Just you go back, gender discrimination. Even COVID-19 is also, though it is a gender neutral in respect to infection, but with respect to affecting, it is not gender neutral. More exploiting women than the men. Then what to do to avoid the exploitation? So what to do? Having protection from the exploitation of women in various aspects or various parts of the law. So this is human rights. What it is. There is no specific definition of human rights given by either Universal Declaration of the Human Rights or by the various international covenants or conventions. But interestingly, I have given you human right is a right to live like any other human being. This is a simple and beautiful definition given way back in the year 2005 by Chairperson of Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. Irrespective of their race, their color, their religion, their gender, every human being is having a right to live with the dignity and equal opportunities like any other human being. That is the meaning of human rights. But if you see, there is so many discrimination between men and women, between one race and another race, between one religion and another religion, between one color and another color. Throughout the world, if you go to the Western countries, there is a discrimination based on the race. If you go to some Eastern countries, there is a discrimination based on the religion, based on the sex, that is the gender, men and women. That is. Then to avoid or to get the equal opportunities, the history was always struggling. Way back from Manu to till a recent modern history, struggling, fighting.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry to interrupt you, sir. I think that somebody has shared their screen and your PowerPoint has gone to that side and it cannot be visible, sir. We couldn't see it clearly. So once more, can you share the screen, sir, so that the PowerPoint will be visible to everyone?
Okay, why it happened?
Somebody shared it. Yeah, somebody shared in between and the screen went to the one side and it cannot be viewed properly, sir.
Okay, no problem.
Sir, so can you share once more, sir? Sorry, sir. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem, madam. I will do it. Okay.
Sorry, participants. Sorry for the inconvenience caused from our side. Sorry.
Okay. Something is happening.
Yeah, somebody started sharing their screen so that this
Okay,
screen
okay.
went. Yeah, that's right.
Again, it is not visible here. Why?
Excuse me, no issues. If you pin sir screen, it will be visible.
Hmm?
Yellow ചേച്ചി
എന്തോ
സാറിന്റെ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ നമ്മൾ പിൻ ചെയ്യുവാണെങ്കിൽ പ്രശ്നമില്ല.
പാർട്ടിസിപ്പൻസ് പ്രസന്റേഷൻ ഫ്രെയിം ചെയ്താൽ അല്ലേ?
അല്ല സർ, യെസ് യെസ്.
യെസ് യെസ്. സാർ സ്ക്രീൻ ഷെയർ ചെയ്തിട്ട് നമ്മൾ പിൻ ചെയ്യാം. സാർ, യു ഹാവ് ഓൾറെഡി ഷെയർഡ് സർ? No.
Yes.
Have you shared, sir?
No, madam, I'm trying, but it is not visible on my windows.
Oh, here also. Yes, 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 Sudhir. Participants can pin PowerPoint in a pin cheyidal madi. Participants can pin the PowerPoint so that it will be visible to all. But sir is trying to share it, but he couldn't get it. He couldn't see it.
Sir, once again you start in your window, the PowerPoint, open your PowerPoint in the window and share.
Okay, madam, I opened.
Then you go to share, sir. Change layout. Here, present now. Change layout.
Sir, or else
Have you gone there?
share the PowerPoint to me. I will share, sir.
Okay.
Share the PowerPoint to me, sir.
Okay,
I will
I
share.
got it now. I got it now.
Okay.
Is it
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Is it okay, madam?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sorry for
And
this.
participants, you please, pin the PowerPoint so that it will be visible very clearly to you. Thank you, sir. Sorry for that.
Okay. Can I start, madam?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sir.
Okay. Then, in the struggling of getting human rights, equal rights for the women, there are a lot of. I will give you just a bird's eye view because you have already heard. I think I presume you have already heard about what is this human rights in earlier classes. Just the first one was Magna Carta. We call it as Magna Carta. In 13th century, that is in 1215 in the England. They have the particular king was conferred human rights to people of that particular person. Then the second one is the French Revolution, 1789, and in America, Bill of Rights in 1791. These are all the documents conferred the human rights on all human beings equally. Then the important one is UDHR. All of you know that is a Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, which declares all human beings are born free and having equality and dignity. This is UDHR. Then second one is the fifth and sixth one is International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1966, and International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, 1966. All these UDHR and ICCPR and ICESCR, all these three adopted by the United Nations and signed by almost all countries of a few signed and ratified by the almost member countries of UN to confer certain civil and political rights and as well as social, economic and cultural rights to all human beings equally. But we have to remember, though these are all the documents which confers human rights, equally are men and women, till this particular year 1979, there was no particular convention which specifically confers rights on women, which is famously known as CEDAW, Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. This is a very, very important, which is called as Bill of Rights of Women or Magna Carta for the Rights of the Women, adopted by the UN in the year 1979, which is having 30 articles. 30 articles are divided into 6 parts, which outrightly denies the discrimination based on the gender and confers women so many rights. Confers women so many rights. India is also ratified, except one article. Conferred this particular article. This particular convention confers protection from domestic violence, protection from sexual harassment at working place, and a right to have a family, right to have a marriage, and a right to have reproductive rights also. These are the rights divided into 4 groups by this CEDAW. So it declares simply, first time declared women's rights as human rights. All women's rights which are declared by the CEDAW and earlier conventions can be or are regarded as human rights. Then to see how this CEDAW is implemented by the member countries, the UN started convening a World Conference of Women. So in World Conference of Women of fourth Women Conference of World, which held in Beijing in the year 1999, declared that women are major force in development. Without involving women in all corners of the life, there cannot be any sustainable development or what you call inclusive growth. Without including women, there cannot be a proper development for a nation. This was the declaration which is called as Beijing Declaration. So you have to remember this particular CEDAW. I suggest the young generation or young students, particularly women students, a very simple convention having 30 articles, particularly Article 1 to 16. Please go through it. You will come to know what are the rights which conferred by this particular CEDAW on member countries of UN. And based on this CEDAW only, our India is also enacted many legislation. Just will come. Then coming into the India, we are having this particular constitutional provisions. The constitution confers many rights to the men and women. The preamble is the key to open the Indian constitution, or preamble is the gateway to enter into the Indian constitution. The preamble says, we the people of India. We the people of India, not at the time of enacting or adopting the Indian constitution in the year 1947 as well as 1950, but today also, we the people. Who are the people? People includes men, women, irrespective of religion, irrespective of race, irrespective of color, irrespective of caste. All, we the people given ourselves this particular constitution. That one has to remember. Then what is the Article 14? This is in India, Part 3, we are having fundamental rights. So Article 14 speaks about equality before law. That is the state. State means the nation India must treat all equal before the law and should give equal protection of laws. There should not be any discrimination based on any caste and race or gender. All should be treated equally. Then Article 15, which prohibits discrimination on grounds of sex, or entering into temples or public places or hotels or public employment, whatever it may be, apart from other grounds, there should not be any discrimination based on the sex. And another important article, Article 15, Clause 3, provides a special power on the state to make special provisions for the women. Remember, because of this Article 15, Clause 3 only, all women are getting reservations in educational institutions, irrespective of whether they are government or private, and also getting reservations in public employment. This is the much important article for women with respect to Article 15, Clause 3. Then Article 16 says equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Of course, latter days, the Supreme Court has interpreted not only in public employment, but also in private employment. But the state should not deny that women cannot do this particular job, or women can do this particular job only. That is a gender stereotype jobs, what you call gender stereotype. That is not allowed under Article 16. And under Article 243, back in the year 1991, the then Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao has brought this particular 73rd and 74th amendments to the Indian Constitution, by which 1/3 reservations is conferred in Panchayat Raj institutions for women. That is why now the women are in Gram Panchayats, or what you call this particular corporations. The said bill is still pending in the parliament since 20 years to get the reservations in the parliament or legislations because of various reasons. The women so far could not achieve the reservations in these state assembly legislations or parliament, but they could achieve reservations only in Panchayat Raj institutions as a part of achieving their human rights. So these are the constitutional provisions. So giving this particular bird's eye view of basic concepts, I have chosen 3 important legislations or acts to be discussed a little elaborated in my class. Such one legislation, though it is a little bit old, but very important. This is Dowry Prohibition Act 1961. Very small act with 10 sections. With 10 sections. You know, this dowry or dowry harassment or dowry death, these are not gender neutral but gender based crimes, only suffered by the woman. Only suffered by the woman. Interestingly, this dowry is a custom prevailing since times immemorial in India, particularly Hindu, but as a social change, it has gone to other religions also. Even in Pakistan, they are having Dowry Prohibition Act because of this particular, this is called as exogenous social change. Social change from a particular group to another group, which is called as exogenous social change. So can you imagine in Muslim religion, actually as per Muslim religion, Muslim custom, they should not demand dowry. They have to given in reverse, which you call as mahr or dower. Muslim husband has to give some amount to his would-be wife, but they are demanding dowry as in the case of Hindu society. That is why it is a gender crime. And when you open any channel, news channel or any internet or any go through the newspapers, you can come across so many cases of dowry harassment and dowry deaths. Then what is dowry? Section 2 defines dowry. Dowry is any property, movable or immovable property, or any valuable security, which means documents of a property, either given before the marriage or given at the time of marriage, or because of demand given even after the marriage. This can be called as dowry. So dowry need not always be given in simultaneously with the marriage, either before or at the time of marriage or even after marriage. That is why the dowry harassment is called as a continuing offense. A person at the age of 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, or even 60 years, a 60 years husband can demand dowry from his wife to get married his own daughter. So this is a paradox. This is a paradox. This is defined as a dowry under section 2. By whom? So this particular Dowry Prohibition Act nowhere says the dowry is to be given by bride to the groom. Even sometimes, depending upon the nature, the groom can also give dowry to the bride also. But generally, that particular situation nowhere prevails. Always the women are victims of this particular dowry harassment or dowry demand. Dowry demand. And section 3 speaks about penalty for giving and taking dowry, and section 4 speaks about penalty for demanding dowry. So the particular who demands giving or even for demanding, both are crimes or offenses. They can be punished according to the act, 2 years or 1 year in fine also. But remember, if the father of a bride gives the dowry and again going on harassed by the in-laws, while he makes a complaint before the police station or a court, he cannot be punished. Why? The Dowry Prohibition Act says that giving and taking dowry both are the offenses. But at the same time, the section gives a particular exception, or section 7, that because the poor father is a victim, he cannot be penalized. He has to seen as not as an offender, but as a victim. The another important section which I would like to focus, that is dowry to be for the benefit of wife or heirs. This Dowry Prohibition Act is having some rules, under which rules the gifts given voluntarily, it may be a dowry or some other gifts, you cannot be called it as a dowry. and that has to be listed and kept with the in-laws. And in-laws are trustees only of those dowry or presents given to the particular bride at the time of the marriage. He has to maintain, he has to protect, and he has to return that particular property within 3 months to the bride, that is the woman. This is what section 6 says in Dowry Provision Act. So many women are not aware about this particular act. So I cannot say that can a married woman file a case against the in-laws for claiming. So that depends upon the situation. If they are living happily, sharing all the properties without any malicious or harassment, they can live happily. But when the case comes for harassment, the woman is having this particular right to take back her own property under this section 6. If that person who fails to return within 3 months, he can also be punished under section 6 for 1 year imprisonment and fine also. So this is a simple Dowry Provision Act. Then I will go for another 2 acts which we should discuss more elaborately. This is the second act, the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. We know what is the meaning of domestic violence. Every woman, not necessarily married woman, every woman goes through this domestic violence, but seldom speak. Not only women, the people seldom speak about this domestic violence. You go through across. Recently, even lockdown, just now I told you, during the lockdown period, police officers, even recently, a DGP wrong person subjected his own wife for domestic violence. So this domestic violence is a violation of fundamental rights as declared by WHO. World Health Organization has declared that domestic violence is violation of fundamental rights. Throughout the world, 45% of women above the age of 15 years are subjected to domestic violence. 45% of women above the age of 15 years are subjected to domestic violence. In India, out of 100 women, 47 are subjected to domestic violence. 47. And out of these figures, 35% relates to physical domestic violence, that is brutal beating. Brutal beating. These are the records of domestic violence. And the irony is that even less than 40% is reported to the police station or comes into the news. Very less, below 40%. Remaining 60% goes unnoticed about this domestic violence. Why? The women, particularly in India, okay, throughout the world because of various reasons, and India because most of the women feel that it is our karma karma philosophy. What do you call karma? Or some women may say it is common. In-laws will beat or in-laws can scold. Even husband can do that type of things. This is what a particular sustainability of domestic violence. That is why it is a violation of right to life, which is guaranteed under Article 21 of Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution Article 21 guarantees right to life and liberty, which is guaranteed as a fundamental right. So domestic violence is violation of this particular right to life.
30 रुपयाला आहे. किती वाढत नाही, वाढतं.
So then, to understand the domestic violence, we have to understand these 3 particular concepts, these 3 particular definitions. One is, who is an aggrieved woman of domestic violence? Someone is speaking, please mute.
Yes, sir, we are muted, sir.
Okay. So these 3 concepts. One is aggrieved woman. The first circle speaks about aggrieved woman. Who is aggrieved woman? Aggrieved woman is a woman who is having a relationship with a particular person who is living or have at any point of time live together and says that I am subjected to a domestic violence. A woman not particularly should live at present, might have been lived in the past, also be called as aggrieved woman, subject to one condition: if she complains that I am subjecting or subjected to domestic violence. Where she is subjected to domestic violence, that is the second one. At the shared household, this is another important definition we have to understand. Shared household. That is the particular woman, aggrieved woman, and the respondent, that is the male person. If they lived in a house, it may be a rented house, or it may be a owned house of either the person, that is, it may be owned by the woman or man, or rented, rent may be paid by the man or woman, or if they are living in a joint family property belonging to their parents, then also that particular house is called as shared household. This concept you have to understand. If this house, if these two persons lives and the man subjects the woman for domestic violence, she can be called as aggrieved woman. Then these two coupled together leads to domestic relationship. Domestic relationship. We will discuss what is the domestic relationship. This next slide. Just I will give you insight. Domestic relationship. Domestic relationship need not always be a marriage relationship. Marriage is one of the concepts of, or one of the relationships of domestic relationship. So wife and husband, that this is one of the domestic relationship. And relationship in the nature of marriage is also domestic relationship. What is the meaning of nature of marriage? Relationship in the nature of marriage. In recent days, past 10 years, I say, India is also witnessing a new type of relationship, which is a Western culture, that is live-in relationship. It started in cosmopolitan cities like Bombay, particularly in software industry, and it slowly is entering into lives of all the cities, not only cosmopolitan areas, all cities are having this type of relationship. Without entering into a marriage, both boy and girl are leading a particular relationship, maybe with a sexual relationship or without sexual relationship. They are having a such type of relationship, which you name it as live-in relationship. This is the second type of domestic relationship. And third one is having relationship because of blood relation. Blood relation, mother and son, brother and sister. That is what you call in family law consanguinity relationship. Consanguinity relationship, which you call, or because of in-laws relationship. And the fourth one is adoptive male and female. Adoptive male and female. Suppose a old woman might have adopted a particular child, and that particular adopted son may subject his own adopted mother for a particular domestic violence, then also that comes under the domestic relationship. So these are all defined under the Domestic Violence Act, what we have seen. Then acts of domestic violence, which is given by section 3 of the Act. 4 acts are defined as forms or acts of domestic violation. The first one is physical abuse. Almost all acts, by simply reading grammatically, you can know the meaning. Physical abuse is nothing but beating, physically beating, or causing physical injuries, or threatening to cause physical injuries. This comes under the physical abuse. And sexual abuse, you know, I need not explain elaborately. Sometimes a woman may not have interest in sex, forcing by the maybe husband or some other person, sexual abuse. Even body shaming. Your body is not having a particular color or particular shape. So this is also the sexual abuse. You can name it as a domestic violence. The third one is verbal and emotional abuse. So this verbal means you are not having a male child. This is a domestic violence because of you only. This is verbal, or you are stupid, or you are not cooking properly. Whatever it may be, you can presume. These are all verbal abusing by using filthy language can be called as a domestic violence. And emotional abuse, emotionally, you can observe, you can say the married persons here can feel. Suppose a husband simply maintains silence months together without speaking his own wife, that is an emotional abuse. If the elders say, what is the fault with your wife? your husband, the wife can't say anything. They ask, is he beating? Is he a drunkard? Is he demanding you anything? No. But what he is doing is simply not speaking with me. He is maintaining silence, going out and looking computer or TV and going and sleeping. So this affects the health. That is why I told you it is a violation of right to life. It affects health of a woman psychologically also. So this is what verbal and emotional abuse. Then the last one is economic abuse. Economic abuse means not giving money, proper money, or not providing sufficient means in house is also economic abuse. And so many working women is also having this economic abuse. Many of the people feel that working women have economic independence, but in my view, they are not having economic independence. Simply handing over the ATM card to the husband and again taking money from the husband weekly wise for their own uses is not economic independence. What is economic independence? Financial independence is ability to control your own money. Just put a question yourself: do you have, or am I having the control over my money to use as I wish? This is economic abuse. These are all recognized as domestic violence under Section 3. And also, the unlawful demand for any dowry is also economic abuse. Not only this discussed, but demanding for dowry is also called as domestic violence. Then what are the reliefs which can be availed under this particular act? Remember, this particular act is a civil act. It will not punish or send the husband to the jail. You may put the question, sir, why this particular act has come into existence? Are there no other acts? Yes, there was acts. The Indian Penal Code having dowry harassment 498A or dowry death 304B or some other act 323 if the husband beats. But this criminal laws always thinks about punishing the accused person, offender. But they fail to give remedy to the victim. What about the woman? Where she has to go? Suppose a wife files a case against the in-laws or husband for dowry harassment, immediately she will be thrown out of the house. Where she has to go? Unless her parents are having means enough, she will be in doldrums. She has to suffer. So that is why this particular act has been enacted to provide the remedies and to protect the woman. That you have to remember. That you have to remember in your. This particular point have to remember in your mind. So reliefs. One of the 6 reliefs have been given under this act. One is protection order. Protection order means physical abuse is there. The woman can make a complaint either before the police station or protection officers or in a court. Court can give protection orders that restraining the husband. With the help of the police, you should not commit this particular physical abuse. If that particular person violates the does not obey the orders of the court, then he will be sent to the jail. If he obeys, it is okay. This is the meaning of protection orders. Then residence orders. Just now I told you, if the wife files the moment 498A dowry harassment, she will be thrown out. But the relief under this act is the court can grant an order. The woman is having a right to reside in sharehold house. That is why I told you, remember this particular definition. It may be a rented house, it may be a owned house of husband, or even it may be a joint family property. With all protection, the police will go and give the directions of the court. The wife is having wife or any woman, agreed woman, as I told you, having the 4 types of relations. She is having a right to reside in this house. They will demarcate, give her a particular room, provide her all amenities for her livelihood. Otherwise, you will be sent to particular jail. So this is the particular remedy given to the woman under this act, residence orders. Then monetary relief. If it is not possible for that woman to reside in that shared household, then it is a duty of the respondent, that is the male person, to provide another room and to give some amount as a maintenance. To claim the maintenance in CRPC, other law or family laws is a long procedure. She has to establish all these aspects. But under this law, by filing an affidavit itself is all evidence. The court immediately gives this particular relief and direct the respondent to provide the particular maintenance depending upon his earnings and how he is living, how beautiful life he is leading. He has to provide all amenities just like him, that particular woman. Then fourth one is custody orders. If they are having the children, then the woman may be thrown out without giving the children. Children may be in the custody of the husband or in-laws. Here also, for getting the custody in civil law, that is family law, it takes years together. All questions have to be established before the court of law, whether they are wife and husband, what is everything. It takes a lot of time. But as a temporary measure, this particular judicial first class magistrate, who is not having this particular right to grant the custody orders, can grant under this act. Immediately the child will be given to the custody of that particular woman, aggrieved woman, immediately. So speedy remedies available under this particular act. Then compensation orders. This compensation order is the other additional order apart from the monetary relief. Suppose she may sustain some injuries because of physical torture or psychological torture. So for medical expenses, for keeping in all these things, the court may grant apart or in addition to monetary relief this compensation orders in terms of money. And the last one in counseling and assistance orders. She may be subjected to some torture, mental torture. She requires some counseling by various experts, the medical experts or some psychologists. So then it orders for these protection officers to give her this particular counseling and assistance. So these are all the reliefs available under this particular act. The simple mechanism under this act is protection officers. I told you throughout India, in most of the states, the Department of Women and Child Development Authorities, the project directors of that particular department has been appointed as the protection officers. That is, the project directors have been appointed as the protection officers. One can go and give the complaint to protection officer instead of directly going to the police station, because she may having some feelings in her mind. So the protection officers has to assist and make a domestic incident report and help her in filing the complaint either before the police station or before the court. And second service provider is a mechanism is service providers. Service providers is the NGOs, non-governmental organizations who are registered with the government, medical councils or psychologists or shelter homes or other what are the requirements for a woman who is subjected to domestic violence, they will provide having with a list. And the last one is the courts, that is a judicial first class magistrate who takes the complaint. Either the court can directly take the complaint, or with the help of the protection officers, the aggrieved woman can file and she can avail. Just now I told you the orders from the court. Lastly, I told you it is a civil law. For physical abuse, for sexual abuse, for mental abuse, for verbal abuse, they are per se not offenses under the act. The act gives remedy and gives the protection to the woman instead of punishing the respondent man. But in spite of having the directions from the court, if he does not obey the orders of the court and breaches the orders of the court, that is, if he fails to pay the compensation, if he fails to pay the maintenance, if he fails to give the shelter in the particular shared household, residence order, if he breaches the residence order, then it is an offense. Then he will be sent to the jail, he will be imprisoned up to 1 year or fine up to 20,000. So this is a beautiful act which has been enacted by the Indian Parliament because of CEDAW. That we have to remember. We have discussed the particular CEDAW Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, that has conferred a right to women that she is having protection and rights against the domestic violence. So in lines with that CEDAW, the Indian government has enacted this particular act. So after discussing this act, I will go for the last act, very important act, that is Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act, which has been enacted in the year 2013. Just I will take not more than 10 to 15 minutes. I will complete within the given time itself. So I think by seeing the pictures itself, you will have an idea what is the meaning of sexual harassment of women at workplace. Particularly, I cannot say the women are subjected to sexual harassment only in workplace. Everywhere they are having this threat. Just now we are witnessing every day in news channels Hathras in UP. What happened to that poor Dalit girl? You are observing, you are witnessing, you are seeing the protest which is going in UP. Everywhere. But this particular act deals with this harassment in working place. Again, the Indian Penal Code is having a rigorous sections by means of section 354 or 354A to D, A, B, C, D, and section rape section 376 or even 509, that is insulting the modesty of the woman. All this, but the question is, they are a most severe acts. If a woman files a complaint in a police station, she has to prove those particular things. But a subtle form of sexual harassment which is faced by a woman in working place, where to go? If she files a criminal case in Indian Penal Code in a police station, unless it is proved that particular person who subjected her to sexual harassment cannot be done anything by the employer. To provide the remedy, this act has been enacted. And I will give you some story, particular act. This particular act is offshoot of SIDA again. SIDA. Way back in the year 1997, there was a case in Supreme Court, Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan. Vishaka is a non-governmental organization, voluntary organization, which still fights for the rights of the women. What happened in Rajasthan, there was a woman called as Banwari Devi. She was appointed as a temporary employer by the government to prevent the child marriages in Rajasthan. In a particular area, she was working in a particular area. But you know, the upper caste, having the feudalistic mentality mindset of the people, did not allow these persons to enter into their villages for stopping the child marriages. But this dear lady, having much courage, entered into a village and stopped a marriage of a 5 years girl. 5 years girl child marriage, she stopped. So keeping in that particular aspect and with grudges, the elders of that particular village committed gang rape on that particular Banwari Devi. And believe me, when the case gone for trial, the trial court, the lower court has given a judgment that Banwari Devi belongs to Dalit caste, untouchable caste. So there is no question of touching of the Dalit woman by the upper caste people. When they did not touch that lady, there is no question of committing the rape. That was the judgment delivered by the lower court trial court. So the judgment caused huge hue and cry throughout the nation. The cause was taken up by this Vishaka. The case went up to the Supreme Court. Then the famous then Chief Justice Verma, who has also amended the criminal law after Nirbhaya 2013 in Delhi, delivered the judgment in Vishaka versus Rajasthan. And apart from delivering the judgment, he used this particular case as framing the guidelines in lines of SIDA. Though the SIDA recommended all the countries to make the law to prevent the sexual harassment in working places, way back in the year SIDA 1979, but India has not drafted or enacted any law. So keeping in that view, Justice Verma given the guidelines in this Vishaka versus State of Assam, beautifully drafted so many guidelines by saying that it can be treated as the law till the law is made by the parliament, and all the government and private entities, organizations should make these rules and see that this should be implemented. If they fail to implement it, amounts to contempt of the Supreme Court and they will be punished. This was the judgment given by the Justice Verma in Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan. 1997, 1979 SIDA, 1997 Visakhapatnam versus State of Rajasthan. Even after 1997, there were so many Supreme Court judgments directing the Indian government to enact the law. At last, in the year 2013, we have this particular act, sexual harassment of women at workplace. Many of the people call it as POSH Act. You might have known, but I don't prefer to use that particular word POSH, Prevention of Sexual Harassment, POSH. Then, whereas domestic violence is violation of right to life, I say sexual harassment is violation of right to livelihood. It affects physically, psychologically, and she cannot do the work. Many poor women may get out of the employment, therefore it affects the right to livelihood. Then the sexual harassment is generally two types: quid pro quo and hostile working environment. So this, the word meaning quid pro quo means I will do something for you and return you have to do something for me. That is directly asking the woman sexual favors. If you give me sexual favors, I will give you promotion. I will give you some increment. If you don't, I will demote or I will remove from the employment. This is what the first type. And second type, this is again subtle form. The employee will not do anything by his words or by his gesture, but makes the environment of the employment to turn the woman as a hostile. This is the second one. That is giving the entire work to a particular woman, or asking the woman very frequently that you just stay here in the office 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock and you have to complete the entire work. Or frequently uttering the words, she is not capable of doing the work. She is not having that much of knowledge or that much of capability. So that is a type of hostile environment that either the woman has to leave the employment or to surrender the employer. This is the second type of sexual harassment. Then here we have to understand these three definitions. Aggrieved woman. Aggrieved woman is any woman. She has to be defined with respect to working place and dwelling place or a house. This we have to define. What is the workplace and what is the house? That means workplace means a woman employed in any government employment or government department, government organization or private organization, whatnot. A wide definition has been given for that. And also a domestic worker. Remember, Visakhapatnam versus State of Rajasthan is a cause of protecting the rights of domestic workers. That is why the domestic worker means a woman worker who is working in a house for washing your clothes or washing your utensils is also called as aggrieved woman under this particular act, not only the woman just like you and me. So what is sexual harassment as per the act? Earlier I told you a general definition. As per the act, unwelcome acts of the behavior of sexual color. I have shown you two pictures that can depict, you can understand. Unwelcome acts, touching, bad touching. In my view, every woman on the earth simply can presume or can smell the behavior of the opposite man, whether it is fair or not. Woman can easily observe whether it is a bad touch or good touch, whether it is a good remarks or bad remarks, whether it is an unwelcome behavior or welcome behavior. She can feel and she can be harassed. Then demands of sexual favors of variety of types, and even showing pornography. This is very familiar with the women working in particularly this software industry. And this is, I told you, this is not exhaustive, inclusive. You can give any number of examples, unwelcome physical, verbal, non-verbal conduct, which can be defined as sexual harassment. And workplace, I told you, there is nothing left to be defined as a workplace as per section 2.0. Very wide definition. Any government entity, any institution, including educational institutions, every university, every college is also a workplace. Here, then one interesting point I would like to bring to your mind, that is, actually, this act should have enacted in the year 2011 only. There was delay of 2 years because of lobbying of northern states, particularly the university teachers opposed that educational institutions should not be included in this particular act. They opposed. Because a student, there should not be any relation as a workman between in education institution between the teacher and student, between a co-employer and employer. That is why it is delayed for 2 years. However, it has been overcome and it has been included. Everything. I have given you just only 3 examples: railways, hospitals, the prisons, educational institutions, every government aspect, private, even shopping malls, including non-organized sector also. All labor organizations, all labor departments, it may be organized sector or unorganized sector. Simply, suppose if you go, a woman enters into a shopping mall and if she faces sexual harassment by a particular employee or the person who is taking the bill, suppose the woman happens to be a regular customer, if his act is unwelcome, she can make a complaint under this particular section or under this particular act. Then we'll go for redressal mechanism. What is the mechanism available? Two types of mechanism is available under this particular act. One is called as Internal Complaints Committee and the Local Complaints Committee. Now, after 2016, it is called as Internal Committee and Local Committee. That is, every organization, whether private or government, having more than 10 employees, 10 working men is having, it has to constitute an internal committee with a senior woman employee of that particular organization or institution. Total, there must be 4 members, at least minimum 4 members, and half should be women. So this is for the working place, the working. Then domestic employees, that is domestic workers, are for an organizations where there is less than 10, where internal committee cannot be constituted. Every district officer under this act, a district officer means a district collector or additional district collector or joint collector is designated as district officer under this act. He has to constitute a local committee. A local committee is also has to appoint a nodal officer with a senior woman and say minimum 4 members. And what are the duties of this internal committee or local committee? The aggrieved woman who is subject to sexual harassment has to file a complaint within 3 months from the date of that particular harassment to this internal committee. An internal committee, after receiving the complaint from that woman, the committee may go for conciliation and settle the matter amicably. If conciliation is failed, it can commence an inquiry. By calling, while conducting the inquiry, these committees are having the powers of civil court. And after concluding the inquiry, this again bounded time is there. This internal committee or local committee has to complete the inquiry within 90 days. And if there is evidence means nowadays it is very easy. CC cameras are there, or any type of messages through WhatsApp or SMS. These all can be treated as the evidence, or any other co-employee, they can also give the particular evidence. Then if they comes to a conclusion that there is a sexual harassment, then they are having 2 options. One is they have to advise the woman, aggrieved woman, that we are submitting our report to employer for taking action, treating the sexual harassment as misconduct under the service rules, and either to demote him or to transfer him or to cut the increment or even removal from the service or removal from the employment, or depending upon the gravity of the nature of the sexual harassment, they can recommend all these things. Apart from these things, they can also advise the woman for filing a criminal case in police station. So these are the duties of these internal committees. And if a woman feels to file an internal committee, or if she is not having that much of easy access, now this Women and Child Development Ministry is having a She-Box portal. If you open, if a woman opens, if an aggrieved woman opens this website, there she can find the She-Box portal. Simply she can file a larger complaint by mentioning all the details and entity or institution. Then they will transfer the complaint to either the internal committee or local committee. Then, after taking the report, inquiry report from either the internal committee or the local committee, what is the duty? What are the duties of employer? He is, apart from all these things, he is bound to implement the recommendations of committee, as per service rules, or if no such service rules are there are guidelines, rules made under this particular act. He has to follow those rules. And apart from implementing the recommendations of the duties of the employer, he has to provide safe working conditions, and he has to display a board of penal consequences of sexual harassment. If he fails to take, and he will be imposed of 50,000 in first time, and second time it can be increased double this fine. Even if he's a private entity, his trade license may be cancelled. So this is with this particular act. So with this, I would like to conclude my lecture on human rights of women. So there, to quote and unquote, there is no chance of welfare of the world unless the condition of women is improved. It is not possible for a bird to fly on one wing. This is the saying of Swami Vivekananda. So with this, I once again thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity for sharing these few thoughts on this topic. Okay. Thank you, madam. Thank you, Meera madam. Now it is your turn.
Yes. Sandhya madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your enlightening and elaborate informative talk. And sir, we have some more questions in the chat box. Shall I read the question, sir?
Okay, madam. I will try my level best.
Sir, there is a question. In rural areas where we actually need women empowerment, is it not the case that benefit of female reservation in politics is actually misused by their husbands, that it was just her name which is in the function, while it is her husband who was out and worked? Snehil Soni. A question from Srimati Snehil Soni.
Okay, I think rather it is a comment. It is prevailing throughout the India, madam, not only in our area. Recently, in our Telangana government, they have given a circular by saying that if husbands attends any official meeting in the place of the women, they will be sent to jail, and a certain fine will be imposed. So this requires some measurements by the government, but I told you, what else can we do? Suppose, what could be your answer? The law is very clear, but again, the same thing is prevailing. Again, some measures are required, but there is no specific remedy or specific answer I could not give. This is only a comment. Okay, madam.
Sir, next question is from Dr. Betty Mole Matthew. Dowry still exists. Dowry harassments are common. Women harassments growing day by day. So our education system is a failure. Do you agree?
100% I agree with you, sir. 100%. So in law, we call some legislations are instrumental legislations, and some legislations are mere legislations. So one of such legislation is dowry. Though there is a Dowry Prohibition Act, but it is not actually effectively working. I agree with you. Not only the failure of educational system, I say it is also failure of our houses also. As a parents, we are failure. We have to inculcate that type of culture among our children, that particularly with the boy children, that you should respect your sisters. Unless we treat that particular culture, unless we inculcate this particular culture in our own children, these all things will going on happening. Okay, madam.
Sir, another two questions from Nagaraj sir. Is it sexual harassment in workplace? Is there in other countries?
What is next question?
Sir,
I think he's having two questions. This is only one question.
Is there sexual harassment?
Okay, I answer you. Sir, out of 193 nations of UN, out of 193 nations at present of UN, interestingly, this SIDA has not been.
അങ്ങോട്ട് അവള് അത് ഇങ്ങോട്ട് അനി ഇത് വെക്കണ്ട ഇതിൽ വെക്കാം.
Sandhya Miss, please mute your, unmute your, so, Sandhya Madam, please mute your audio.
One interesting point you have to observe, sir, the US is not signatory of SIDA. See, that is the most developed nation in the world. It is not signatory to SIDA. So that is why it is not enacted this particular laws relating to sexual harassment. Reason is that it said that we are having already advanced measures protecting the women from sexual harassment in our labor code or labor laws. Almost remaining all countries are having this type of laws except US, according to my knowledge. Yes, madam.
Sir, next question. Rape cases in India, there must be very cruel punishment should be imposed by our constitution. For this, any more information, sir?
Madam, coming into the aspect of section 376 rape, actually there was a big debate. You all know in the year 2013 that bad incident has taken place in Delhi. We know it as a Nirbhaya incident. I told you Justice Verma, just now I told you, he was appointed as the chairperson to review these criminal laws. But there was many suggestions among the many, including Maneka Gandhi or some other persons, that death punishment should be awarded for the rape offenders or rape criminals. But Justice Verma didn't accept it by saying that if you award, there is a threat of rape and murder. His thought or his version was that in every rape, if you award the death punishment, every woman who is raped will be murdered to avoid the evidence. So, but still, after amendments for particular below 14 years, below 7 years, 8 years children, there is a death punishment, but not for male adult women. That death punishment is not given after having all thorough discussions. In the rest of rare cases, in other cases, death can be given, but rape, I am also against awarding the death punishment because to wash out the evidence, there is every chance that these fellows may also cause the murder of that particular woman, just like in Hathras, what you are observing. So unless you have that particular evidence in Nirbhaya case, most of the cases, the victims, the criminals will be let free. That is the fate of our judicial system.
Sir,
Okay, next.
Yes, Sandhya Madam.
sir, shall I read the next question?
Yes, madam, you can.
Why raped girls are identified in the name of caste? Is this leads to non-stoppable?
Madam, please, once again.
Why raped girls are identified in the name of caste? Is this leads to non-stoppable?
Again, this is not specifically related to any specific legal provisions. This is a general. These are the general observations. See, you are all going through the Facebook or WhatsApp messages. Just see, you take the present example of a Dalit girl who has raped and brutally murdered in Hathras in UP. When there is a UN cry, all says that they brings into picture that this girl was having some link with the boy, or some others say only there will be punishments or encounters when the rape commits against the upper caste. But I can only say in India, still there is prevailing caste discrimination. It may be any offense, sexual harassment, domestic violence, rape, murder, or whatever it may be. There are so many atrocities going against the Dalits. That is the caste-based discrimination. It requires some time, and it is to be implemented by the judiciary or executive properly. This else can only I can say.
Next question, sir. From Jayakrishnan, sir. Sir,
Yes, I'm listening.
sir, the next question is from Jayakrishnan, sir. Today, more cases have been reported from cyber world as virtual abusing. Do the cyber laws are capable of settling issues?
It means, suppose, again, whatever the mode you use a woman for sexual harassment, if it is a workplace, you can file a case under just now what we have discussed, Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act, PASH Act. Or you can file a case in Indian Penal Code, particularly Section 354. But remember, particularly in India, only one act is there dealing with all these cyber issues or information technology based issues. That is IT Act, what we call Information Technology Act 2000. Information Technology Act 2000. But according to me, that act is not sufficient. They required a particular another law which speaks about these offences, particularly sexual harassment or cyber crimes. At present, according to me, apart from this act or Indian Penal Code, IT Information Technology Act is not enough to deal with all type of cyber crimes. And interestingly, the Information Technology Act nowhere used the word cyber crime. Information Technology Act nowhere used the word cyber crime. So there is a dire need for enacting a particular legislation. This is my view.
Sir, there is another question from Nagaraj, sir. Why death punishment should not be given?
In which cases?
Cases not mentioned, sir. Cases.
There is already, Madam, Indian Penal Code is having 14 types of cases where death punishment can be awarded, except in rape cases. Except in rape cases. Rape cases too, only the woman who is having majority of age. After recent amendments, death punishment can be awarded. But in every rape cases, I told you, you just go through the Verma Commission report of 2013 in criminal law amendments. He has very categorically discussed why death punishment should not be imposed. It is available on internet, Justice Verma Commission on Criminal Law Amendments 2013. If you go through it, you can come to a conclusion or you will have the answer why death punishment should not be awarded in each and every rape case.
Sir, I have a question. Sir, Sandhya Madam, I have a question.
Okay, welcome, madam. Welcome.
First of all, I have heartfelt thanks to sir for such a wonderful and lively presentation. From the chat box comments, we understood that the participants are very much enjoyed. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your remarks.
I have one question. Even after the enactment of several laws, as you explained, we witness incidents like Nirbhaya and Hathras, etc. Isn't it the more or less feudal mindset of the Indian society is to be blamed?
Madam, last word I couldn't hear you.
Isn't it the more or less feudal mindset of the Indian society is to be blamed?
100%. 100%. When I told you about the Banwari Devi example of Vishaka versus state of Rajasthan, because of feudal mind only they have committed a gang rape. But see the judgment of lower court. She is a Dalit woman. That is why the upper caste woman cannot touch him. Therefore, there is no question of rape. Is it the judgment? Is it the way of delivering a judgment of lower court? Still, I told you, still there is a lot of atrocities going against the Dalit, irrespective of gender. This is because of feudal mindset. This is because of feudal mindset. Laws alone cannot remove or abolish or annihilate these atrocities against the Dalit unless this is done away with. Then what to do? Then what to do? We have to think how to inculcate this culture even after having 70 years of independence. This is a debatable question, madam.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sandhya, madam. Sandhya, madam.
Sir,
Madam.
sir, there is a question from Shanmuga Sundarakumar. Whether all the accused were convicted in the Bhavadi Devi case and imprisoned?
Madam, I couldn't get you. Whether the accused are
Whether all the accused were convicted in the Bhavadi Devi case and imprisoned?
in present. It was the case judgment of very way back in 1997. All were not punished. Some were released, some were punished.
Yes, sir. That's all the questions, sir, I think. Any other questions? Any other questions from the participants?
Janata, madam.
No questions because you have given vast rules to protect ourselves to women. And I have seen in the chat box there was a question, sir, is there any rules and regulations to protect men from women? Some of the participants have, one of the participants have asked. So we are happy that we have rules and you have made it very clear so that we can empower ourselves. We don't want to be get scared of. Still we have the stereotypical thoughts and that is the stigma that society have put on us. So from that we have to come out. Many people are still, there are rules but we are not making use of it. That you made it clear, sir. We can make use of it.
To add you, so just now I told you that in India, 47 women are subjected to domestic violence, whereas one man, that is the
Any other questions, Sandhya?
No, Janata Miss.
So you can pass on to the final vote of thanks, formal vote of thanks. Yeah, Sandhya.
I think, sir,
Thank you.
these laws,
Thank
Yes.
you so much, sir.
Sandhya, madam, please. Sir, Srinivas, sir.
Sir, Srinivas, sir.
I think he lost his connectivity.
Yeah. Please wait, Sandhya, madam.
Okay. I like.
Srinivasan sir, let us wait for a few seconds for the formal vote of thanks and let us conclude the meeting. So there is some network issue and he will join us now. Please wait, participants. He is back. Sir is back.
Okay, I think some here heavy rain is there because of.
Yes, sir. We can understand. We all are facing the same issues.
Only to conclude or to end the meeting, only thing one thing I add, madam. There is misuse of Dowry Prohibition Act. There is misuse of sexual harassment. Maybe one or two cases in thousands. but you cannot take it as an example and say that there is no protection for men against the women.
Yes,
I agree with you, madam.
thank you.
Miriam?
Yes, you can.
Yes, yes.
Sir, thank you so much, sir, for answering. Thank you so much, sir, for answering all the questions patiently. By proposing vote of thanks, and I invite Dr. Shobha, Assistant Professor, Department of Mathematics.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, Shobha.
Thank you. Okay. A warm and graceful evening to all. Myself, Dr. Shobha, Assistant Professor of Mathematics and Social Media Coordinator of IIC. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. First of all, I extend my most sincere thanks to Almighty God for making today's occasion a resounding success. First and foremost, I thank our distinguished Chief Guest, Dr. M. Srinivas, Professor of Law, University College of Law, Kakadia University, Telangana, who despite his busy schedule has found time to grace this occasion. Today, we are blessed to have an opportunity to hear valuable and interesting talk about women empowerment, economic dependence, etc. Sir, really it was a very interesting and a wonderful session and a very good interactive session also. On behalf of IIC, I express my sincere thanks to you, sir. Thank you, sir. I also express my heartfelt thanks to Mr. A.M. Sridharan, Director UGC HRDC, Kannur University, for his valuable contribution. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. K.V. Jayasri, for being the catalyst that stimulated us to do our best and standing as pillars of strength. Thank you, madam. Also, my thanks goes to our IQAC coordinator, Dr. K. Meena, for her wholehearted support throughout this program. Thank you, ma'am. I, on behalf of IAC family and IQAC, express my sincere gratitude to our IAC President, Dr. Smita Nayak, and the untiring effort of the organizers, Dr. Meera, Dr. Janada, and Dr. Anita of this program. Finally, I thank our wonderful participants for their kind cooperation and support throughout this course. Thank you, Anandal. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, one and all, for having a patient listening. Thank you,
Thank you,
madam.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Meera?
Okay, okay. Yes,
Meera?
yes. Yes.